Right, the quarterfinals have happened, and there were no real surprises. Now, this is not the preview of the semifinals yet, that is for tomorrow. This is the review of the quarterfinals. And as I said, there were no real surprises. Some teams can consider themselves slightly lucky, like Australia. Some teams deserved winners, like Germany, like Belgium, like India. But there is a story to all games, and let's start with Germany against Australia. Germany would have been happy finishing second in Group B at this tournament, but it faced an Argentina team that hasn't been good for a while now. The Pro League, they were absolutely terrible. The preparations to the Olympics, they weren't good either. In the group stages, they only qualified in the last game against New Zealand, which, in fairness, they played well in, but they just left a lot to be desired, Argentina. Offensively, in the group stages, much like today, they just couldn't get much going. Now, they started the game as the better team, if we're honest here. Argentina started the game as the better team, but Germany just solid defensively, good organization, good leadership. They were compact, knew when to strike, knew when not to risk it, as to not give too much space for Argentina in the attacking half. And Argentina just didn't have any response for them. Unfortunately, this isn't a team that was in their prime in 2014 and 2016. Now, there was a lot of turnover with the players from that squad compared to today's, and all the players remained in the squad. And yes, I wrote a column about it on my Substack. If you want to read about it, I've linked it on my Twitter, I've linked it on my Instagram. But it just wasn't the Argentina team that they used to be in 2016, and they just looked uninspired. They had some brilliant moments at times in the group stage. You think of that Nicolas Keenan goal. We think of the game against New Zealand where they were up against it with their backs to the wall, and still somehow managed to win that game fairly convincingly and qualify for the quarterfinals. We just didn't see that Argentina team today, and Germany was the rightful winner. The rightful winner. Now, Windfeder got 2 goals, the first one in the penalty corner, the second one for the 3-0 goal, obviously when there was a little less pressure on them to score. Now, it's good to get him going on the penalty corners, because against Australia, Australia is going to make mistakes in the deed. They're going to give penalty corners away. And if Germany wants to score, not only from open play, obviously with guys like Hersbruck, with guys like Hohe, is going to be very, very important to get those penalty corner guys going, like Hearn, like Windfeder. And with 2 goals in this game, I'm not so sure of the outcome of the semi-finals, but that is for tomorrow. Now, Australia versus the Netherlands is a game that, on paper, Australia should easily win. They were first in Group A, the Netherlands were fourth. It looked like the Netherlands tank is slightly empty after the European Championships victory, but Australia's last game in the group stages against Spain just wasn't very good at all. Spain could have perhaps done more in that game, and today the Netherlands could have done more as well. Much like Argentina, the Netherlands started as the better team, as the much better team, forcing many errors, forcing many corners. Charter had to be at the races. He was at the races, and it, if it wasn't for miscommunication at some points, or just bad positioning at some points, Australia would have likely made it through. Now we think of that second goal from Connor Wickham, where he's left completely alone at the penalty stroke dot. No one to mark him. He gets the ball. He just has to tap it home. It's an easy goal to give up, and it's much too easy. Now, the Netherlands with Van der Weerden, with Hertzberger on set pieces, got 2 goals back. It ended up in a draw, but you have to wonder what could have been for the Netherlands. Now, this was Max Calder's last game at the helm of Oranje, and somehow, Australia still makes it through. Now, I talked about the bounce back ability in the column that I wrote about Argentina's crash out of these Olympics. Germany has been very good when they've played bad games, and they bounce back to win games. We think of that game against South Africa, they lost, they bounced back to beat the Netherlands. Australia had a bad game against Spain, and they didn't particularly impress me today. Now, offensively, they're probably the best team around here. Yes, Belgium is great offensively too, but let's face it, Australia is a different juggernaut. Anyone can score in that team from set plays, from open pieces. You just don't know who it's going to go to, and you don't know who's going to get those goals. But if we look at those last 2 games that Australia have played against the Netherlands, against Spain, it could really go either way for in the semi-finals. But again, that's a matter for tomorrow. Australia can't count themselves lucky. Netherlands perhaps unlucky. especially when we consider that in the shootouts there was perhaps a little bit of pushing by Andrew Charter. However, the Netherlands had lost their referral by then. Um, yeah, what could have been, what perhaps would have been if they had the referral, I don't know. But yeah, it is what it is. Argentina against Germany, Australia, sorry, against Germany in the semi-finals. Now, the all other quarterfinals, Belgium against Spain. Now, that was the easiest game to call. Most people would have bet all that they have on Belgium, and for a long time here as well, it looked like Spain actually could have done something more. Now, it took 26 minutes to get a goal, and that goal came off a leg create. At the time, it looked like a controversial goal um, to to award. Was it outside the D? Wasn't it? In retrospect, we have seen images that show that the ball shown that have shown that the ball was indeed in the D, so it's a correct goal. But from that moment on, Spain really should have bounced. Belgium had to go forward. They had to force slightly more forward. They had to commit more men forward. Spain should have then changed their tactics to not sit back, but perhaps a half press and in their own half, but a lot of pressure on the ball carrier. Make sure that you win some balls relatively high up the pitch, and then counter and look for the second goal. Now Spain just couldn't do it, and yet again, Alexander Hendricks, crucially important to Belgium's chances. Now, much like GB, and this is kind of the transition to the GB game, but much like GB, Belgium is very, very reliant on the penalty corners. Now, they have been good. Alexander Hendricks came back after taking that stick to the face, so that's good. But can Belgium do it if teams, um, India in the semi-finals, don't give away many penalty corners? Can Belgium get those goals if they have to force it from the back line, if they have to force it from the sides, from open play? That's a whole different matter. But Belgium have been good. It's not a convincing win, but it's a good win. It's a much needed win, of course. And they won't really care how they did it. They still are unbeaten, having won every single game uh, at this tournament so far. But uh, India will be a different beast in the semi-final because, as we saw today, India against Great Britain, it really, yes, the second half was slightly better for GB, and GB probably was the better team in the second half, especially in that fourth quarter. But India in that first half is just, they were much too strong. That's exactly where they killed GB off to begin with. Now, GB should have perhaps rotated more in the group stages, giving their reserves a chance, like Alan Forsyth, to ensure that some other players, some complementary pieces, get some rest and are slightly more fit for the quarterfinals. Danny Carey just refused to do it, and it showed today. Really, in the first half, they were tired. India was pressing him very high. They were forcing these errors. They were forcing uh, Great Britain to just pass the ball outside the boundaries of play or into their own sticks, and it just wasn't a good showing from GB in the first half. The second half, too little, too late. India hadn't won the game, but being up 2-0, it's a very comfortable lead. You can afford a mistake. You can even afford two potentially, so long as you get an extra goal, and that's what they did. A mistake on the penalty corner gives Sam Ward the goal. It's 2-1, but it forces GB to come forward even more because they have that hope. And GB should have done better because it was 7 minutes to go. For the rest of the game, it was 11 against 10 men for GB. If any moment is ideal to score, it's that moment. With 7 minutes to go, you score a goal within the first 2-3 minutes. You still have 4 minutes with the man advantage to get that game-winning goal. They just couldn't do it on the counter attack. Hardik gets a shot off. Ollie Payne saves it well. He gets his own rebound. Beautiful, beautiful shot, bottom corner. Um, it doesn't look as hard as it is, but trust me, that goal, I saw it, and what a goal it was. With the ball bouncing out everywhere, with 4 5 players in front of the guy, with a goalkeeper that was very well positioned. It's an excellent goal, a very, very underrated goal. Could potentially be a goal of the tournament. Now, we have seen some excellent goals so far, obviously, but I tell you what, the technique required for that goal was out of this world. Now, Great Britain will look back at this tournament and think perhaps They could have done better, obviously, in the group stages. That disallowed goal against Belgium, or that goal that wasn't disallowed but just not given, would have changed where they would have finished in the group stages. They could have finished second and gone on to face Argentina. Would they have won this game? I believe they probably will have. But yeah, it's part of the game. Mistakes are part of the game. Referees will also make mistakes. Now, yes, obviously the repercussions are very, very harsh, and GP will be left to wonder what could have been. But India certainly merited this victory in this game. That gives us a semi-final of Belgium versus India, which is a semi-final that I'm very, very, very intrigued by. But I'm not going to go into the details of why or who I think is going to win. That is for tomorrow. So we had some excellent quarterfinal games, no real surprises, as I said. I'm very much looking forward to the semi-finals, and yeah, I'll make a preview tomorrow, as I've said. Stay tuned for that. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video. I thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.